Hello everyone, this is Gene and I'm back with another video. So this is an article that I'm responding to from the Mary Sue, which I actually, in a very general sense, agree with. Believe it or not, even a broken clock can get the time right twice a day. So this article is from earlier this month. It's by Princess Weeks. And it says, we need to bring back nuance to the way we talk about female heroines and protagonists, which I actually do agree with her on. Now, she goes on in the article to talk about several female characters who I will talk about. And she basically argues that we shouldn't take these positive qualities that these characters have, for example, their strength or their cunning or their intelligence, don't automatically assume that they are good people, right? Or good examples of empowered women or feminism and whatnot, that we should actually acknowledge the, I guess, nuance, you could say, the nuance and oftentimes the complex nature and duality of these characters. Now, I do agree with her on this, believe it or not. I do agree, at least in a general sense. I can't necessarily speak to whether or not her descriptions of these characters are accurate, given that I did not watch most of these shows. The only ones I'm familiar with are DS9 and Xena and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and she doesn't really go into those long enough for me to ascertain whether or not what she's saying is accurate. So I guess you gotta just take it on faith on this one. But the general tone and the theme, I guess you could say, of the article I agree with. However, there was something I did notice about the article, which I think is probably unintentional on Miss Week's part, but I will get to that in a moment. So, here are the characters that she brings up throughout the article. They are, in order of mention in the article, Hermione Granger from the Harry Potter series, Daenerys and Sansa, I think her name is, from Game of Thrones, Princess Leia from Star Wars. I'm an Ahsoka girl myself, personally. I have a weakness for the whole noble samurai thing. I can't help it. But then we have Nerys Kira from Star Trek, who's actually one of my favorite characters in that particular series. I loved her and her relationship with Odo and her friendship with Cisco at this very unique space they were in that they were friends, but he's also her commander, but he's also in a way, because she's actually a very deeply religious woman, and Jesus, their name escapes me at the moment, but I guess you could say the beings or the gods that she believes in, believes Cisco to be the emissary. So he's basically like Jesus to her, in a sense. So it's a very interesting relationship that she has with Cisco, and I thought she was one of the best written and acted characters, not just from DS9, but from Star Trek in general, in my personal opinion. But then again, my opinion is biased because DS9 of the, what is it, four? The original four Star Trek series was my favorite one. So I'm kind of pulling for the home team here. But I think Kira is an amazing character, and she was well acted by her actress. Nana Visitor, that's her name. Nana Visitor did an amazing job. But moving on, then we have Xena, who was of course played by Lucy Lawless. And then we have Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, I think, at least for the characters I am familiar with, yes, these are very good, nuanced characters who were not angels, who had complexity and duality to them, who had a darkness to them. So I don't disagree on that part. I don't even disagree, as I've said, with the tone of the article or with what it's arguing. What I find interesting, and what I think Miss Weeks was not taking into account or wasn't consciously thinking about when she wrote the article, is how, with the exception of Harry Potter, every character that she mentioned is the creation of a white man. Now I'm going to go character by character and series by series, but you're going to see that nearly every one is a white guy. Right, so we're going to start with Harry Potter, which of course is the creation of one J.K. Rowling. Then we have Game of Thrones, which is the adaptation of the, I believe it's called A Song of Ice and Fire, right? Those novels, and those, of course, are written by George R. Martin. Then we have Star Wars, which is the creation of George Lucas. Then we have Star Trek, DS9. Star Trek in general, right? The franchise was created by Gene Roddenberry, but DS9 in particular was created by Rick Berman and Michael Piller. Then we have Xena Warrior Princess, which was created by Robert Tappert, who was the executive producer, along with R.L. Stewart and with Sam Raimi, who you may remember from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy from the early to mid 2000s, right? And then, of course, we have Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is the brainchild of Joss Whedon and a small team of executive producers behind him, which in the research I did for this video, I believe 2 of those executive producers that helped him get the show started were female. Right? But the point is that, right, all of these characters that are well written and nuanced and beloved by the fans of the respective series, right? They were, with the exception of Rowling, right? They were created by white men. That's the crazy thing, right? She's unintentionally praising a white man's work, right? And I'm all for bringing nuance back to female characters or any character, but I just find it interesting how she's so progressive, yet she doesn't realize that she has not praised the work of one black person in this entire thing, right? It's almost like race doesn't matter when you're a creative person. But anyway, what I find interesting is that Miss Weeks here, who, if you can see this, is not male or white herself, right? She, again, most likely unintentionally, praises the work of white male creators, again, Rowling being the only exception. But when Rob Liefeld, who is a creator best known for his work in Marvel Comics, who co-created characters such as Deadpool, Domino, and Cable, right? When he offers an opinion on something, here's what Miss Weeks says. Right, this is an article she wrote. Rob Liefeld's thoughts on Harley Quinn's costumes weren't necessary or interesting. Keep in mind that Rob Liefeld looks like this. I think he looks pretty dang good for his age and for the career he's had in comics. Most people in comics don't end up looking as youthful as Rob does after a 20-some year career. But obviously, right, Rob is a white man. He's a white man who's created many beloved characters, but he's still white. So apparently Miss Weeks has no problem praising the white creations, right? A white man's work, but let a white man compare Harley Quinn's visual design for Birds of Prey to Debbie Harry, and suddenly he should just, at least this is the way I understand it, the way I took it, is that he should just sit down, shut up, and keep his opinions to himself. Because a man who has created female characters, created, or at least co-created, I should say, the character of Domino, who has a very distinct physical appearance, right? Has a very unique character design, right? He can't comment on a movie's costume design, which is designed to make a character look unique and stand out, right? But here's the thing. What Miss Weeks does in this article is unknowingly make the argument I have been making for well over a year now, and even going further back to before I started making videos, which is that race and ethnicity don't matter. The quality of your work is based on merit, right? Take, for example, Full Metal Alchemist, which is one of and the, in my opinion. For me, it is the best manga I have ever read. For me, personally. Now, this manga, right, is not an American creation, right? In fact, it is the creation of one Hiromu, real name Hiromi Arakawa, who looks like this. Now, of course, this is just sort of her author avatar. I couldn't find a reliable picture of her online, which is why I'm using this. Hey, if it's good for the author herself, I think I can use it too. No intent to infringe on copyright, after all. But what I like about Hiromu Arakawa is that she doesn't allow herself to be limited by what others' opinions are and what others think she should be doing because she is a female mangaka. In fact, here's a little, I guess, anecdote or blurb here, which I think is from FMA, where she was sharing a little bit about her life. It says here, apparently, when my neighbor's 3-year-old daughter found out that I'm a manga artist, she said with a sparkle in her eyes, "I wonder if she draws princesses and stuff." Sorry, little girl. I only draw grubby old men. Right? Arakawa does not allow herself to be pigeonholed by stereotypes or expectations of what a female manga artist should be. And again, this is in Japan, which typically has a much more conservative, what's what I'm looking for? Culture, I guess you could say, than the US or the West does in general. In fact, the Mary Sue actually did an interview with her back in 2014. And here's an interesting snippet that I would like to read. So, it says here, it was talking about other people's reactions or responses to finding out that Hiromu Arakawa is female. So it says, "I had no idea the creator of Full Metal Alchemist was a woman. Weird. There is still a perception among people that women can't write boy stuff or action stuff. However, Arakawa has her own words on the subject." And now these are Arakawa's words. "It is often said that women are better to talk about emotions, to write dialogues that hit the nail on the head, and men know how to create stories with twists and turns. As for me, I think it's difficult today to make a distinction between genres. Some men are really able to imagine sensitive and complex characters, while some women are able to create sometimes violent action scenes. Nowadays, each writer has their own specialty. It doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman." And that's the point. That's exactly the point. We shouldn't be, or rather I should say, the comic industry or the entertainment industry in general should not be pigeonholing men or women into certain roles or certain assumptions or expectations just because they are female or just because they are male or whatever it is, or because they're black or because they're white or because they're trans or because they're gay or whatever it is. Right? Because when you hire on merit and you rate work on merit and creativity, what you get is stuff like Spawn, right? Now, Spawn, as a man, as a human, was the man Al Simmons, who obviously is African American. Now, the creator of Spawn is Todd McFarlane, who obviously is a white guy. See, Todd had the idea of Spawn in his head since he was 16 years old. He took this idea, he nourished it, he fleshed it out, he took it to Image Comics way back in the day. In the 1990s, the comic Spawn was born. It didn't matter that the creator was white and the character was black. What mattered is that the character was cool and edgy and interesting for its day. That's what mattered. But you see, sadly, modern day entertainment, in particular modern day comics, and in particular Marvel, they no longer go based on merit. They no longer assign people or check out a person's work or ideas based on merit. What they like to do these days is to Assign like with like. For example, you have Eve Ewing, who I think a year or two ago was assigned to write the solo series for the character of Ironheart. Who, interestingly enough, the character of Ironheart, is also the creation of a white man, Brian Michael Bendis, who is a very, very, very controversial writer in the comics realm, who's currently writing and, in some people's opinions, ruining Superman. But interestingly enough, Brian Michael Bendis created the character of Riri Williams as a tribute to his adopted daughters, who I do believe are African American. But here's the thing. Marvel didn't hire Eve Ewing because she submitted some work and they liked it. They didn't hire her because they checked out some of her work and liked it. She didn't have any comic work prior to this. She did, I think, poetry and I think some YA novels. They hired her, or at least the common belief among fans, among comic fans, myself included, is that they hired her because she resembles Riri Williams and that, like the character, she is a black woman from Chicago. That is the prevailing belief, and I hate to say it, but I think that belief is true. That they hired her because they figured, well, she's a black woman from Chicago. She should certainly be able to write this black character who happens to be from Chicago. There's no way this could go wrong, because apparently all black women in Chicago are exactly the same. Or when Kelly Sue DeConnick revamped, if you want to call it that, Miss Marvel and turned her into Captain Marvel back in 2012. The prevailing belief, and I do share in that belief, is that Kelly Sue DeConnick was allowed to do this because Kelly Sue grew up an army brat and for many years of her life struggled with alcohol issues. Whereas the character of Captain Marvel is Air Force, has been a pilot and has been a colonel, right? As a military woman. And up until her entire history was retconned a few years ago, also struggled with alcohol, and that was actually one of the prominent elements of her stories in the late 1990s when she was kicked off the Avengers. They hired her, or at least in my opinion, they hired Kelly Sue for very superficial reasons, because she happened to have a few things in common as regards to the military, and of course the most tragic part being the alcoholism. I don't like Kelly Sue worth a damn, but I am very happy that she did overcome that. That's a very hard vice to get a handle on, and I applaud her for that. Everything else, I can't stand, but I do applaud her for that. And I will say that there are some redheads I will always be a fan of, regardless of their controversial opinions from time to time, but Kelly Sue ain't one of them. She ruined one of my favorite characters. I can't forgive that. But anyway, moving on, we now have another Kelly who is currently writing Captain Marvel. Kelly Thompson, who, in my opinion, having read several of her comics and having done reviews on a few, I don't think Kelly knows how to write, as in the most basic elements of writing and storytelling. Just because Kelly Thompson is a woman does not automatically mean she knows how to write a female character, because I've read her Captain Marvel. It's awful. I've read Star, both issues. I just have to do a review on the second issue at some point. But I've read both issues of Star. Hate it. I've yet to find anything that I think, or that I can tell is actually good writing from her. I've heard that she did well on Mr. and Mrs. X. One story does not a good writer make. Right? This is the same woman who had She-Hulk, the educated attorney, right? The criminal defense lawyer, say this. And this is actually from a most recent Captain Marvel comic. I believe this is from Captain Marvel 14. Right? She has She-Hulk saying, "Hulk smashy time." I want to repeat that. She-Hulk saying, "Hulk smashy time. You're making an adult career woman sound like a child. Not even Bruce Banner, who as Hulk, right, loses most of his intelligence, speaks like a child. He doesn't talk like that. He goes, Hulk smash, Hulk bash, right? Hulk sad. He speaks in a very simple way, but I would never classify that as childish. It's just getting to the bare bones of how he feels because, again, all that intelligence, all that, I guess, higher brain function, right, is gone when he's in Hulk form. But I would never ever classify it as childishness. And this is flat out childishness. And I'm not simply saying, right, I'm not giving an opinion that Kelly Thompson wrote this. She flat out is identified as the writer on the beginning pages of the comic. Okay? She wrote that. She wrote that, and apparently the editors, Sarah Brunstad, Will Moss, and Tom Brevoort, didn't think that this was a problem. They apparently had no problem with this. And I'd also like to point out to the artist, Lee Garbett, just because the battle bikini look works on Big Barda does not mean that it works on this particular version of She-Hulk. It doesn't. It does not make She-Hulk look interesting. It doesn't make her look good. It doesn't make her look imposing or anything else. It honestly makes it look like she's trying too hard. We've already had a She-Hulk in a battle bikini. Maybe you should, I don't know, take a look back into the past and get some inspiration from that, because this is much more, at least in my opinion, aesthetically pleasing than this. If I have to choose, I'll choose this one every time. But that's just me. And of course, I have no doubt that if somebody, let's say from Mary Sue, were to see this, they would call me a self-hating woman or a misogynist because I prefer a beautiful character to a grotesque one. But you know what? I don't care. I don't care what another person who can't tell stories thinks of me. So anyway, that's the video. That's pretty much it. Those are my thoughts on it. I just find it interesting how Miss Weeks tries to silence a white man while unintentionally praising the works of white men. Of course, the one difference being J.K. Rowling. But still, all white. It's kind of like race doesn't matter when you're a creative person, and gender doesn't matter. And all that matters is the quality of your work. I think Martin Luther King said something about that, didn't he? That he hoped that one day that his children and their children would be, that they would be judged on the content of their character, right, and on merit and on what they did and who they were, as opposed to the color of their skin. I don't know. But anyway, that's the video. Please let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good day or night. Be happy, be healthy, be safe, and I'll see y'all around. Have a good night, everybody, or a good day, wherever you are. Bye.